tell us how much FDI from the U.S. has come into Ghana?
I can't tell you the exact figure, but I can give you some indications. 37 American companies have invested in Ghana over the last 5 years. In the last year, we can tell you that there have been 79 new investments or trade deals worth a total of $800 million. So an average of $10 million per deal or investment, on average. I can also tell you that this year, so since January 1st, 6 American companies have started to operate here, including...
That is this year?
This year, including Procter & Gamble, the consumer goods company, Uber, the ride-sharing service, Pizza Hut, so a variety of different companies.
Do you have an idea what impact these investments are having on the Ghanaian economy?
Well, I'm certain that they're creating jobs, and most of these companies employ tens or dozens of people. In addition, they're generating tax revenue. So I see it as a win-win for both countries. If we put this in the broader context of the African Growth and Opportunity Act, one of the efforts that the U.S. government is promoting through AGOA is job creation. We estimate that we've created over 350,000 jobs in Africa as a result of AGOA exports from Africa. Now, those companies need supplies, need equipment, and so on. A million jobs, very important distinction. Now, the million jobs have been created indirectly in Africa. And we are having some difficulty quantifying how many jobs have been created in the United States as a result of AGOA. But we know that for roughly $80 million in foreign direct investment by an American company, we're seeing something on the order of 20 permanent jobs and more temporary jobs.
How is Ghana doing within the AGOA system?
Ghana's performance has been uneven. It's picked up in the last year or two, particularly as a result of the textile industry. Textile imports were relatively modest in recent years, but in the last year, textile exports have reached roughly $1 million a month, and we believe that there's potential for continued growth, perhaps doubling or tripling that over the next 5 years. We also believe that now that the phytosanitary conditions have been met, that Blue Skies will start exporting cut mango and other fresh fruit to the United States, and that will be followed by their juices. So in two areas where Ghana has a relative advantage, textiles and tropical fruits, we're seeing real growth based on the AGOA legislation.
Do you have an idea how much Ghana exported to the U.S. last year from AGOA?
Yes, roughly $350 million worth of goods.
That's not very significant.
It's important. By contrast, the U.S. exported about 2 to 3 times that, about $850 million worth of goods.
So the deficit is huge.
The deficit is huge, and our goal is to use AGOA to make up some of that deficit. The other thing that we're doing, and I believe that the Ghanaian Parliament's passage of this Export-Import Bank on July 5th is an important step. The other thing that we're doing is identifying particular value chains that we believe have opportunities. So I mentioned textiles and tropical fruits, but shea butter is another, cashews might be another. We're trying to look for particular niches where Ghana has an advantage and make certain that those products are packaged and prepared to U.S. standards so that they can get into the U.S. market. And I think that that will lead to other opportunities as people see that it is possible.
But the U.S. is holding negotiations with Asian countries that have the likelihood of jeopardizing Africa's textile imports on AGOA.
So when Congress renewed AGOA for another 10 years last year, much of the discussion was that the 10-year extension would be the last. And when we host the next AGOA forum in Washington at the end of September, the theme will be what's next? How do we transition from AGOA within the next 9 years to a different trade framework? We have a free trade agreement with Morocco, for example, which wants to rejoin the African Union. We have been in lengthy discussions with UMOA countries, the WEMU countries, and we have a trade and investment framework in place with the WEMU countries. We've long had trade relations with the Southern African Customs Union. So we're looking at freer trade in both directions. And one of our goals is to create more economic growth so that free trade can be a two-way street going forward.
Vietnam alone exports $20 billion worth of textiles to the U.S., and the whole of Africa exports only $1 billion. If you take off the taxes from the transactions you have with Vietnam or Asia, Africa is doomed.
I don't agree. Ghana, for example, is competing with some other African countries as well as Asian countries. And Ghana has an advantage in its proximity to the United States and the direct shipping from here to the United States. And the distances from here to the East Coast are shorter than the distances from Vietnam to the West Coast.
But the country can still compete with Vietnam. That's a fact.
The country doesn't have to produce the same type of textiles as Vietnam does. It can produce niche fabrics and it can produce competitively uniforms, their sports clothing. I suspect that there are other niches, for lack of a better word, that Ghana can fill that will be very competitive with Vietnam. But Ghana also has to put the right investment environment in place. As you know, access to credit here is a challenge, and access to reliable electricity supply is a challenge. And Ghana itself needs to deal with those in order to increase its competitive advantages.
What would you say to the critics of AGOA that it hasn't benefited Africa as much as it should?
I think creating 1.35 million jobs is quite a significant creation. And I also think that African countries are finally beginning, and it's taken a long time, to realize where they can utilize AGOA to the greatest benefit. And I think Ghana in particular has identified that it has potential, and textiles would be the primary example of that.
But as you may be aware, all the textile industries in Ghana are struggling, if they ever exist at all.
Well, they are struggling, but we've identified 6 companies that we've provided training for in the past few months that we think can successfully export to the United States. The best known is Dignity, DTRT, which I visited with the Minister of Employment and Labor a few weeks ago, and they have more orders than they can fill. And their only constraint to filling those additional orders is additional space, which they are in the process of acquiring.
What's the trade volume between Ghana and the U.S. in the last 1 year?
So altogether, in both directions, $1.2 billion.
That's still not growing.
It's not growing, and I think
why is that so?
Well, I think it's because of the economic situation here, because previously, in 2014, it had been $1.4 billion, with both sides having higher trade. But I think the energy situation here cut into the exports, and I also think that the reduction in petroleum exports figured into it. I know that the reduction in petroleum exports figured into it.
Why is the U.S. not encouraging Ghana to export processed products, add value to raw materials?
In fact, we are encouraging that. But it depends on the product. For agricultural products, the phytosanitary challenges have been significant, but I think we're overcoming those. And through our Trade Africa program, which is a USAID initiative announced by the African Leaders Summit 2 years ago, we are investing $10 million to assist Ghana in building its export base. Moreover, President Mahama has been invited to the second business forum in New York in September, and that will be an opportunity for him to talk with leaders of American industry and other African leaders, both from the private sector and government investing here. And we need to be thinking in terms of how the region can work together. How can AGOA export more to the United States, not just Ghana? How can the countries work together so that each is using their competitive advantages?
But there are international trade challenges, which of course we can talk about later, which are, how many visas did you issue last year?
Last year we issued about 13,000 visas. Over 9,000 were for tourists, businessmen, and students, and another 3,500 approximately were for people who wanted to immigrate to the United States.
And how many did you reject?
Not as many as that.
How many?
I can't give you those figures.
You can't or you won't?
I can't.
Because you don't have it?
No, I have it, but that's not something that the U.S. government releases as a matter of record.
Is that an indication that you rejected more than you gave?
No. Well, I can tell you absolutely that we issued more people than we rejected.
So there shouldn't be an issue telling me how much
well,
you rejected.
My instructions are that visa refusals are not matters of public record.
But these are not specific details, just the figures. I know you don't give out specific details.
All I'm telling you is that we issued more visas than we refused.
All right, thank you very much. And looking at U.S. military assistance to Ghana, how is it going?
Very well. So we provide approximately $2 million a year in assistance for training and equipment, and we do a number of joint exercises each year. We did a naval exercise earlier in the year involving all the countries in the Gulf of Guinea. We did another Zone F exercise, which is Togo, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire naval exercise. We have an exercise coming up in Tamale in September, which will be focused on the Ghanaian Air Force. And we've done a counterterrorism exercise, and we'll be in the process of planning another one very shortly. So,
how is the Ghana Army benefiting? What are the results what are the indicators you are achieving with all these operations in the military?
So we're looking at two things. We're looking at the counterterrorism capability, which I think is quite good. And I think while no country is immune from terrorism, the better prepared a country is, the more successful it can be at deterring attacks. And the quality of Ghana's anti-terrorist units is high. The other thing we're looking at is peacekeeping. Ghana is a great contributor to peacekeeping operations, one of the largest contributors in the world. And we are providing significant training and equipment for that peacekeeping role. For example, we provide logistics, we provide medical equipment and supplies, we provide some aviation assets to peacekeeping countries, and we are moving beyond the basic training of infantry to really make certain that Ghana is one of the countries that can be first to respond to demand for peacekeepers, both in terms of military response, but also in terms of a police response.
So in effect, your cooperation is making Ghana's military and police much more functional and effective?
We believe so. And the Ghanaian military, all the services, Army, Navy, Air Force, all exercise with us and are exercising increasingly with other African countries so that they can understand how those militaries operate, so that they have relationships with militaries in other countries, and so that we can work easily in a joint peacekeeping operation or in other joint and combined operations.
Not the final thing I want to talk about, but quite an important one, illicit financial flows. What is the U.S. government doing to help Ghana stem this?
So we have been working with the Economic and Financial Crimes Unit for some time. We will continue to do so. We're also training prosecutors, judges, forensic accountants. We have a U.S. government-run West African Training Center here in Accra, which is training roughly 40 people per week in some kind of law enforcement activity. This week it happens to be training police prosecutors, but another week it's training judges, another week it's training police investigators, another week it's training people in bomb detection and disposal. We've got a whole variety of programs going on here, but on the financial side, we're very focused on money laundering, narcotics money, and how we can assist the government with prosecutions. And I'm satisfied that government officials who are being trained are using the training, and that the cooperation is growing.
The country uses as much as $40 million, I think, a year to visit financial flows. And so far, only 2 people have been prosecuted for money laundering.
So I think you need to ask your government why more people are not being prosecuted. This has been my complaint about trafficking of persons, that there have been many investigations and few prosecutions. I'm hopeful that through the training we're providing to police prosecutors and other prosecutors as well as judges, that we can see more of these complex cases working their ways through the judiciary. That's one of my personal goals for my tenure here. But I agree with you, there have not been many prosecutions, and while I understand a number of investigations are at advanced stages, I would like to move from the investigative stage to the prosecutorial stage.
The final question on U.S. prisoners in Ghana.
Mm-hmm. 5 Americans are currently in prison in Ghana. 4 of them are there for narcotics offenses, and that number is going to be decreasing relatively soon because 2 will have completed their sentences in the next few months.
You've been quite busy since you took office. Are you enjoying Ghana?
I'm enjoying Ghana very much.
So I would assume you have found your favorite Ghanaian dish already. Which is that?
Actually, a few. I've discovered that I quite like the guinea fowl.
Oh, guinea fowl.
Guinea fowl, yes.
That's a legendary fowl with a lot of stories to go with it.
It's very good.
Roasted, fried?
Roasted.
Roasted. What else?
So I've tried pretty much all the Ghanaian dishes. I've tried fufu and banku, and I really like the tilapia. That's another thing. I'm more of a protein person than a starch person. So.
I wanted to ask you what happened to you the day you ate fufu for the first time.
Nothing out of the ordinary.
Thank you very much, Ambassador.
Thank you very much.
It's been nice talking to you.
It's good to talk with you.